Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Classical Antiquity Sidequest, podcast covering topics from classical antiquity. The period of time is known for, as Edgar Allan Poe put it, the glory that was Greece, the grandeur that was Rome. Our next side quest will see us test my wife's movie theory that an exploding volcano will make for an improved cinematic experience by reviewing 2014's Pompeii. The movie grossed about 117.8 million against a budget of between 80 and 100 million. So moviegoers clearly did not agree with her in this case as a general matter, but perhaps specifically they might think that the exploding volcano was the best part of this movie. I'm not going to find everybody who saw this movie and ask, although it doesn't seem like there were that many folks who saw it. Anyway, putting that aside, our guide for this side quest is Victor Lamas, who we remember from the Alexander the Great episode and our other movie review episodes. Victor Lamas, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on again. Hope you all listening. By the time you listen to this, you've had a wonderful Thanksgiving and a happy holiday. I'm excited to dig into this film. I'll probably start really quickly by saying yes, this film was better for the volcano erupting. Um, from what I understand, I read a little bit about afterward. The maker of the movie did research on it, and volcano, and the experts or whatever on the Herculean, the Vesuvius explosion, say it was fairly accurate, a little bit exaggerated about some of the stuff, but it was a good portrayal of what it would have been like when the whole thing blew its top.
Yeah, we probably should have said spoilers that things explode, but I think you probably know that at this point. I don't even really want to talk about this plot, to be honest with you, because it really doesn't matter and it's terrible. It was just completely derivative of Gladiator. It was like a rough draft that you get from a high school or a middle school
It was
student who,
definitely a great value, great value at Walmart. It was great value Gladiator. I actually found several tropes or several movies that it borrowed from. For example, the beginning scene where it's an 80-62, and so the one who would become the main character, Milo, is a Briton or a Celt, as they put it, in his village is conquered and slaughtered. His family is slaughtered by the Romans, and a lot of the scenes are almost note for note similar to the old Conan the Barbarian movie from with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? The death of his father, and then his mother bravely stands up, and then is murdered in the neck. Uh, so it had echoes of that. This movie had echoes of Conan, of Braveheart, of Gladiator, and there's even a scene that I think again is also pulled almost directly from the Kirk Douglas Spartacus movie. So
um, yeah,
that's familiar
and
ground.
yeah, so I did not do any research to see if this was accurate because, again, the plot was something that you get from somebody who's learning how to write. Okay, that was the script. And instead of editing it to make it better, they just went with it. To the extent there was a coherent narrative, briefly, Kit Harington, Jon Snow, he knew nothing in this movie, or his agent knew nothing, and he agreed to do it. His family was killed by Kiefer Sutherland and his Roman cohorts. There was some Celtic rebellion. They had to open up the trade routes again. He's taken prisoner, Kit Harington is, and then he becomes. I mean, I gotta say though, like he got in shape for this movie. This was like Brad Pitt and Fight Club level ripped for this
He
movie.
was.
And he becomes a great gladiator for reasons, and he meets the wife of local noble or the daughter of local nobles. We'll get into what a great cast this was in a minute. Local nobles in Pompeii. Again, for some reason they meet, and then for some reason they kind of fall in love with each other. And Kiefer Sutherland's character is a Roman senator doing some things. What? I don't care. I had to watch this twice. And look, it's a terrible plot. You are not watching this movie for a plot. Anyway, cut to the point. Kiefer Sutherland's a bad guy. He's always doing bad things for reasons that are not really clearly explained. And then the volcano explodes, and him and his cohorts try to do everything they can to escape and murder a bunch of people along the way. It kind of gets to one big cinematic fight scene, which is probably unnecessary, but shocker, at the end, everybody dies. So,
Actually, you reminded me of that. And saying that, it's another movie where there's another movie that this film basically rhymes with, say, or imitates, is Titanic. As Titanic is sinking, you still have a whole lot of stuff that the villain's trying to do, both get it revenge on Kit Harington's character, Milo, while still trying to escape. So that's another movie that this film borrows beats from. Uh, it's interesting what you bring up with Kit Harington getting in shape for this. His abs. So we see Kit Harington about minute 8. So we jump from 15 years later, right?
right.
80 62, which was coincided sort of with the famous revolt of Boudica and the Iceni. And then it's 79, which of course is the year I think of Vesuvius erupting. And we meet Kit Harington at a rainy gladiatorial fight in Londinium.
And I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Remind me to ask you about why they fought in the rain, but continue.
Well, I let's cover that now.
Okay.
I found that weird. I found it. I guess it's to establish. I'm thinking cinematically, it's to establish a certain mood that this is a backwater that people are, I guess, are so bored that they're going to show up for a gladiatorial fight, even though it's in the rain. So it kind of makes it seem as if it's the minor leagues. I think that's the
Yeah,
reason to give mood
but
to the film.
it seems risky to let your gladiators fight in the rain and in the mud because they're going to be more prone to injury and getting hurt.
Well,
And they're expensive, right? They're
this
not cheap. I
exactly.
mean, it's an
This
expensive
film,
thing, and I could be totally wrong about this, but just as some guy who has spent way too much time of his life watching sports, nobody likes playing in weather like that because the chances of them getting hurt, slipping, blowing a knee out, ankle, whatever, go up. So, like, why would you could just light it dark? I mean, just light it darkly, like, to go back to Brad Pitt and Fight Club, the director of that movie, whose name I cannot believe I'm spacing on right now.
David Fincher.
Yes, David Fincher always lights his movies dark. So just light it dark, man.
Well, this movie continues. This movie continues Hollywood completely, I guess, butchering what gladiatorial fights really were. From all the stuff that, I've read and historians say, documentaries I've seen. So when we meet Kit Harington's now, as you say, he's a gladiator, right? There's no backstory is given to him
Yeah,
there about
you
how he
just
becomes.
show up. You just
He just
hop in
shows
the
up
fast forward machine and he's there.
and he fights these four heavily armed gladiators and defeats them fairly easily as if he was a martial arts master. Which, I mean, just to say, from all the stuff we've read about gladiators, they fought them for the most part in pairs. So having one gladiator face all four, and the other thing that Hollywood does not show is that for the most part, most gladiators were not killed in their fights.
Right.
They were not killed. They were basically trained. And yes, the armor that they wore, the armor in this gladiatorial armor here is somewhat ridiculous. They like their black leather. But it is true that the armor that the gladiators wore, from what we can tell, was designed to make them look good, and it wasn't entirely designed to protect them. The other thing was that Kit Harington's abs would have been an anomaly. From again, the stuff that we've learned about gladiators is that they had a bit of pudding on them. They were more thick. Part of that is because it allowed for more splashy and cinematic looking blood in actual gladiatorial fights. And so they would have been more thickset. In fact, the one scene in Gladiator where Russell Crowe's character fights this famous gladiator, that's what a gladiator probably would have looked like. He would have looked like more thick, more padding, flesh, that sort of thing. And Kit Harington's abs would not have been, not that the Greeks and the Romans, didn't, we can tell from statues their athletes, they did have abs, but gladiators were not trained to be built like that. And you didn't fight one against four, and you didn't fight to the death only on rare occasions. And exactly, I mean, imagine if every gladiatorial fight, as it is seems to be in Hollywood, was to the death, you wouldn't have gladiators.
Right.
You wouldn't have them, and it would be a fruit. I mean, from what we also know is gladiatorial fights became a big, big business. It was a sport. And so it just wouldn't have been economical. You couldn't have made money in that business if you died uh, in these fights.
Right.
Only
Right.
only in later part of the imperial period was there more of that. But even then, again, it was on a rare occasion that it was to the death.
Yeah, and I don't really understand what the point of the gladiator plot line was in this movie. It really seemed pointless. You could have just had him be sold into slavery, which would have been easier to do because, as we all know, um, there were a lot of slaves in Rome, certainly around this time. So I don't know what adding the gladiator element really does to the story.
Well, you've answered your question. It adds the gladiator element, and you're risking 90 million bucks. Kid Harington is not he was in his third or fourth year of Game of Thrones, but he still wasn't a proven movie star, and he never was. And you gotta, it's the thing of Roman movies. You gotta have your Roman aesthetics and Gladiator, you got to have some gladiators in it, man, because Gladiator made a lot of money. So the director probably, from what I read about him, he was more interested, obviously, in the volcano and being accurate about that. And so maybe part of the script he compromised. He said, "Okay, fine, let's stick a gladiator in there," right? Maybe that was some producer saying, "Look, man, we can't put butts in seats if you don't have some fight scenes in action." And hey, it's
Yeah.
Rome. Why don't you put gladiators in it?
I guess I don't know. We've talked about this kind of thing before. If you have a good story, people will watch it one way or another. But
Well, this was
and the sad thing about this, and we've talked about this in other movies, but this is particularly true here. This is a really good cast that got wasted. All right. We talked about Kit Harington. I mean, he's not a bad actor, but um Kiefer Sutherland was in it. But they made him do a British accent for it for some reason, which Kiefer Sutherland, I think he's more of a TV actor than a movie actor, but that's not a criticism of him. It's just kind of, I think he's a little bit better at one than the other. But he's got enough street cred as Jack Bauer to not have to use a British accent. So just let him be, let him and talk how he would normally talk. You also have Carrie Ann Moss, who is
yeah.
Aurelia, a local noble.
She
She was in
looks
the
the part.
Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her husband, the actor who plays her husband in the movie, Marcus Cassius Severus, is Jared Harris, who you may not recognize his name, but you have seen him. He was in Fringe. He was in Chernobyl.
Oh, Chernobyl,
He's
fantastic.
been in a lot of stuff. He is a very, very good actor. And he is super, super talented. He's in Foundation as well. He is very good. And on top of that, even in some of the smaller parts that you have in it, you saw the guy who played Atticus. He's been in a lot of different things, but one of the kind of overlooked actors is Sasha, I may mispronounce it, Roiz. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He has been in a lot of things, particularly if you've seen the TV show Grimm. He was one of the police chief captains, or the main police chief captain in that. And he was also in the high school reunion episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's very good. You just had a bunch of real talented people that you wasted. and didn't utilize in this. And that just drives me crazy.
The lines or the dialogue certainly was not good. I think the cast did what they could. They were also, I think, they were selling Kit Harington's good looks. When he first appears, he has sort of, the a very carefully tousled hair, a hair lock in front, like a little lock of hair that dangles. And so they were obviously trading on that aspect that people found about Kit Harington as well when he was doing, the Jon Snow character. Kiefer Sutherland, he actually won like a Raspberry or a Razzie for worst actor in this movie, which I thought was unmerited. He chewed up the
He was
scenery.
nominated. He didn't win.
No, okay.
Okay.
Um, he I think the reason they gave him a British accent is I remember the original Spartacus movie. They gave all the Romans British accents and the American, slave rebels, they were American actors. I think basically just carefully enunciated English as the Brits, may have at least some of their accent is, gives more of a feeling of an older time. And that's why they probably maybe either the director asked it or to have him do a British accent for that reason. Because in these movies, just a pure American accent just sounds too contemporary. I think that's why they did it. I understood why they did it, if that was the reason. Because
Yeah,
an American
I
accent, it just does not, it sounds too modern.
maybe. I just my view on it though is we're coming to watch a movie and it when when you watch Kiefer Sutherland in a movie or a TV show, you recognize it's Kiefer Sutherland. Some actors you'll forget that you're watching them, you
Right.
know. You don't necessarily do that with Kiefer Sutherland. And so when you put on the accent, you're initially, I think, why is Kiefer Sutherland talking with an accent? Maybe it's just me because like I grew up watching him and all kinds of different random things on TV. There's some actors when you watch them, you don't necessarily say, "Oh, this is Tom Hanks or whatever." He can kind of transcend that sort of a thing. Matt
Yes.
Damon does it as well. But I just Kiefer Sutherland is in my mind, he's Kiefer Sutherland and he's also Jack Bauer.
Well,
So
then you might be arguing. I think you might be arguing yourself into this that I like Kiefer Sutherland, but then he was probably miscast for this
correct.
movie. He was miscast because you can't get past. We can't. I certainly understand what you're saying. Is I found it difficult to not just simply see Kiefer Sutherland in Roman gear,
Right.
right? The actor, the British actor that you mentioned, who plays, that's been in all these series, he is blessed, of course, with he gets to just be whoever the character is and do a fine job, right? I
Yeah.
thought he was splendid in Chernobyl, which is one of the best damn things I've ever seen on television.
Oh, very good.
Um, but you're right. When you have Kiefer Sutherland, that's just Kiefer Sutherland. Um, Kit Harington back then was not, I guess, famous or well known enough in the sense that maybe he could disappear, but they didn't let him disappear. He looked too, they let him look too pretty. They let him, the hair, the facial hair was a little too well tended and things like that. So that was one other aspect of this movie is in some ways the movie looked beautiful. I actually thought the CGI computer generated shots, overhead
Yeah.
shots of the cities was well done. In many movies, they often tend to look really fake and cheesy. This movie only suffered from a couple overhead CGI shots that were bad, but otherwise, I thought they did a good job of showing like from a bird's eye view, these places.
Do you think if they had switched Kiefer Sutherland and the actor you were thinking of is Jared Harris, if they had switched those parts and had Jared Harris be the villain, that might have worked a little bit better? Because I think Donald Sutherland in The Eagle also didn't have to use a British accent. I feel like there should be a Sutherland rule that when they're in movies, Roman movies, regardless of who they're cast as, they just use their own voice.
Yes, in fact, they probably could have used Kiefer Sutherland. You know what? They could have used Kiefer Sutherland as the Atticus character, right? The sort of they could have used him as the other gladiator who was more grizzled and older.
Right.
He would have been a good partner character to Kit Harington. They used a perfectly fine actor for it, but that would have been a role that maybe would have suited him better
Hmm.
because by having again, we think of Kiefer Sutherland, so he's sort of a similar to say Bruce Willis, right? Bruce
Yeah,
Willis
you know
has a
you're
certain
watching
thing.
Bruce Willis. You think that's Bruce Willis.
Yeah, you would Bruce Willis would not have worked as a Roman aristocrat in this movie either. And that's not because Bruce Willis is a bad actor. It just doesn't work. Kiefer Sutherland, we think of him as sort of like a Jack Bauer, gritty kind of. So he could have been the other gladiator that partnered up with Kid Harington, right? Would have provided some sort of mentorship, that sort of thing role there. So he was the wrong character to agree with your point there. That's actually what I would have, if I had a choice, I would have cast him as that character Atticus.
And the guy who played Atticus was good, I
He was
I
fine.
thought, but I didn't I thought that that character itself was just very derivative of other movies. I
It
thought it
was
was just
derivative of the gladiator character, right?
right to go back to Fight Club, it was a copy of a copy of a copy, is what I thought.
This movie
With
is definitely it is poor. It is definitely photocopies of scenes and characters and tropes from other films.
right.
Um,
Now, now, let's talk about if you're going to tell a story about Pompeii, maybe how you would do that, and then we do need to talk about how awesome the volcano explosion stuff was because that was awesome. Um, I,
how would you have done that?
well,
You could have had
so
Pliny the Elder, right, or Pliny the Younger.
right, I think you could have done a couple of things. There was a scene when the volcano is about to explode where Kiefer Sutherland is saying basically we hear you, Vulcan.
Mhm.
We are obeying you. We will do what you say. And so you could have had some sort of like Cassandra-esque type
Right?
story about somebody is saying, no, there's something else here. This isn't that we're out of touch with the gods or something like that. And the sacrifices aren't going to help us. And you could have done kind of a mini religious kind of evolution conflict type story there, right? Or something along those lines. Or you could have done a little bit more like HBO's Rome, where you're just kind of exploring what things were like back then. You'd have to
Right.
work in a little bit more plot. Maybe you could have done something political about, Jared Harris's character and Carrie Ann Moss's character trying to rise up the ladder, but you do it in like a 10 episode limited series, right?
Or let's say you don't, let's say you have to do it in a film. Actually, you know what? You could have done it more like a Titanic.
All right.
Titanic
Before
is
you
this,
before you continue with that, and I do want to hear that, I do have to make a confession. So I am in an ongoing bet with my mother to see who can go the longest without seeing Titanic. I have never seen that movie. It was a deliberate choice. We're seeing who can go the longest without watching.
I think both of you can win that bet because I don't know if I think enough time has passed that you probably don't have to see it. I don't know if it's one of the all-time greats, but to my point in that sense, basically with Titanic, I'm trying to think of any sort of Titanic. Titanic basically is just about class and it's basically a melodrama, right? About a woman trying to escape her aristocratic past, and there's this sort of poor, spunky guy played by Leonardo DiCaprio who romances and
So it's
captivates
like
her.
Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah, and then but they just happen to be on the Titanic, right? And that then becomes the last third of the movie, which provides everyone a chance to reveal their true character, their bravery or cowardice, etc. So you could have had, and so that's why I used this film instead of focusing on some gladiatorial stuff that really didn't go anywhere. you could have had a sort of, yeah, you could have had a fun exploration of just some melodrama in Pompeii with the beautiful aristocratic daughter, right? Maybe wooed by a lower class guy or, played by Kit Harington, and then some version of that, right? You wouldn't have had all this sort of just
Well,
tiresome gladiatorial stuff that had been
I
done in other films.
I like where you're going with the idea of that would have actually made the love story between Kit Harington's character and the I can't remember which actress. You can tell how little I paid attention to these movies that I'm not even willing to go really look and find out here. Uh, but that would have made Cassia, that was her character. I think Emily Browning was the actress. That would have made the love story make sense and had a point to it because this movie, the love story and the interaction between Cassia and Milo was completely pointless and just threw off the whole movie and it made no sense. I mean, it was a McNulty subplot of the highest order, I think. It added nothing to the movie. And to skip ahead to the end where these two kind of end up in eternity together, embracing each other like the two what are they called? The two lovers of Pompeii or whatever.
Yeah, which
You know, it it was forced and pointless, and you didn't really get anything from
I'll say that I wish the lead up could have been better. Of all the parts of that movie, I actually found that myself to be the most. That was actually my favorite part of the movie is where they can't outrun it and they're gonna die together. Obviously because it was poorly brought up to that point. I did think there was chemistry between those two actors. But it would have been I mean, in other words, imagine a film that was much better that would have led up to that in a way that really would have stuck with you. As it
it.
is, that was
Yes,
a part that I enjoyed that part. It surprised me, right?
but a movie that was better at causing two characters to embrace their demise and fate together was called Rogue One.
Oh,
They went
I knew
with
you
an
were going to go there.
Yeah, they went with the ending that Rogue One went with, and Rogue One did it later, obviously. Spoilers on the beaches of Scarif, but that was way better. Those characters, especially when you watch Andor and you see everything that Cassian went through to get to that point, that ending makes a lot more sense and is a lot more meaningful. This movie did not get to that point, and it just
It didn't earn it in
yeah,
your,
it did not earn that ending at all.
no,
I
I
mean, they'd
liked it though.
interacted with each other for what, like 30 seconds until like the volcano erupts?
Well, let's see here. When she first catches a glimpse of him, like 10 minutes in, it's it's because where I remember his tribe was an expert on horses, etc. And so a horse breaks its leg and is suffering,
And he kept
and
all that knowledge with him from basically toddlerhood to the
correct.
future. Yeah, okay.
And then and she starts to fall in love with him because he mercifully breaks the horse's neck to put him out of
Because
its
it,
misery. Which,
yeah,
by
exactly.
the way, if you can just with one like twist of your arms break a horse's neck, you can break chains that are holding you, right? And you can run at the speed of Superman because I don't know much about horses, but it's probably really hard to break a horse's neck with your bare hands. Uh, and so I don't know if Kid Harington or anyone could have done that. Uh, so
I'm not going to search for the pressure amount that you'd have to apply to
right.
do that because I'm going to get put on a list if I do it. But yeah, so but then they saw each other again and they like went for a midnight ride again, very Lady of the Tramp, which go watch the last days of disco and see the scene where the one actor explains everything that's wrong with Lady and the Tramp and how it ruined a whole generation. Disney ruined a whole generation of women's ideas about the right kind of guy they should be with. Great scene. Uh,
I gotta see that.
but they barely interacted enough to really earn that kind of a meaningful ending, right? I mean,
No, you're right. As images in the last few minutes, I liked it, and I will say, the first time I saw that film, it surprised me, which was nice. You rarely get surprised by certain things, and I like that they had the guts to end it that way, and it was a poignant ending. You're right. It could have been earned better. There's a whole lot of stuff in this film that is it's like checking boxes but isn't earned. For example, besides Kiefer Sutherland, he has a henchman named Proculus, which I just wasn't sure what his role was other than
To fight Atticus at the end for some
it's
reason.
so a very yeah,
And
a very tough opponent who, by the way, is told by his commanding officer to just risk his life in some arena, which
while the volcano's
while
going.
the volcano, I mean, you talk about a guy who's loyal and obeys orders.
Can we talk though about that final gladiator scene between so and I do want to say in fairness, like when you know
Oh God, are you
when the
talking about
tramp,
the fight with
yeah,
the fight in the arena
no,
with
I don't even want to get into that crap.
and
I'm
they're
not
all
I'm not
chained
going there.
up? Oh God,
That was
I
so
forgot. That was
so
ridiculous.
derivative. No, I'm not going there. But when the tramp Kit Harington, Roman Snow, we'll call him Roman Snow instead of Jon Snow. When Roman Snow is captured with Cassia. Okay. Um, Kiefer Sutherland is furious about it because he's called dibs on Cassia. And, dibs are sacred. So, whatever, especially in the ancient world. So he's like, I'm going to straight up execute Roman Snow. Cassia's like, no, I'm going to intervene and sacrifice myself by giving myself to
Right,
you.
to marry you, yeah.
And that way you'll save Roman Snow. And so there was that part to it. And so anyway, that I guess technically is important. I don't want people adding me on social media for not saying that. But the end fight scene as the city is blowing up, which when the volcano explodes, that was really cool. When it took out the boat with that one volcanic rock,
Yeah.
that was awesome. It hit this boat straight on the water with this guy who like got paid a lot of money to get it to take off early just by himself, and he died, and that was really cool. But there's a fight scene in the gladiator arena between uh the Roman soldier Proculus and Atticus. Now remember, Proculus was involved in killing Roman Snow's family, his Celtic tribe family. So wouldn't it have made more sense for Roman Snow to kill Proculus and then kill Kiefer Sutherland's character because they were the ones who murdered his family and tribe?
Yes, but I guess you have to distribute, you got to give that character Atticus because they're gladiators. Think about this. It's sort of like that Alfred Hitchcock rule, right? If you're going to show a gun in the first act, it's got to fire by the third act, right? If you're going to show a gladiator, by golly, a gladiator's got to end, he's got to go out gladiating, right? And so they had to share the revenge or the fight scenes, right? You got to give Kit Roman Snow his fight scene, and you got to give this character Atticus his fight scene. And so you give it to the sort of second villain, right? The sub villain.
Yeah, I
I mean,
guess,
I'm
but
just trying to think of
couldn't
the
Atticus
script writer's logic here.
couldn't Atticus have gone and saved Cassia and her servant who does die in that, and then he died while saving them, and that would have allowed Roman Snow to kill Proculus and also Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, I mean, we're just rearranging bad script, right? Tiresome script into less tiresome script. You remind me of someone. The It's another current modern Hollywood trope that this is another one where the Cassius servant, right? They're basically chummy, right? I see that a lot in
Hmm.
now recreations of the ancient world where like the servant, the main servant to someone, they're just basically on a level, right? We are, as modern folks, we're uncomfortable with I mean, justifiably so, but we're uncomfortable with somewhat the servant role. So what we tend to do in these films is turn the servant role into a confidant, right? And
Yeah.
I noticed that again, it's just these are all beats that when I see movies like this, I do these mental games in my head, and then I chuckle to myself as each thing is sort of check the box. I'll tell you what, I didn't. I was surprised that we didn't get it, and then I think we got a glimpse of it. You know my thing about the musical scores of these films. Ben, I don't know if you remember, what am I always looking for? The cliche, ever since Gladiator, what is the cliche musical
So
theme?
like the
Or
kind of folk style Celtic string, that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say the old woman wailing,
Yeah.
right? And we were fairly free of that. And then I think I caught a glimpse of some part in the movie, some some lady, like doing
Yeah.
some
I
sort of
mean,
thing in the
I got to level with you. I got so bored watching this movie again that I put it on 1.25 speed, which helped make it get through much easier. I did come up with a way while I was listening to you talk about the problems with the plot and rearranging things. Let me throw this at you for a way to make this better. Okay. This is a disaster movie, right? That's what this movie is, right? The volcano's
Right.
exploding, people have to survive. What is one of the best disaster movies ever made? Okay. Now, you're probably going to come up with a long list, but you're not going to get what I'm going to say next. One of the best disaster movies ever is Airplane with Leslie Nielsen.
Okay.
This movie should have been a comedy. Okay. It should have been a comedy in antiquity. And I think Kiefer Sutherland has enough acting chops where he could have been like Leslie Nielsen in all those Zucker movies. Okay. And just trust me on this because the remake of The Naked Gun had some good lines in it. There was some good laughs in it, but um I cannot believe I'm spacing on his name. The guy they cast to play it,
Oh, Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson does not have the timing to have that kind of um, comedic style. It's a very
Right.
unique deadpan type of acting. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. He just was miscast for that movie. But I think Kiefer Sutherland could have actually pulled that off, and they could have made this a brilliant comedy. Jared Harris is a great actor. He could have done it. This could have been a really, really funny disaster movie.
I'm thinking about this. I mean, with the right director and script, so one of the funniest and yet also brutal films that I've seen in the last few years, it's one of the best movies I've seen was The Death of Stalin, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that film. If not, I highly recommend it. That movie was brilliant in that you're laughing your butt off and it's still not afraid to show you just the ghastliness of the whole Soviet system, right? So with the right dialogue and script and sort of deadpan, probably and mostly British, you could have pulled off a pretty good satire of Roman society while and then have this big volcano explosion wipe them all out,
You
right?
could have gone really dark with it and gone like, I don't know if you've ever seen Death to Smoochie, but that movie is brilliant and it's for some reason impossible to find now. But Danny DeVito directed it. Ed Norton is in it.
Okay. I think I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Robin Williams is in it. And it's about a children's TV show and
Okay.
who is going to be the lead actor in this children's TV show.
Yeah.
And that movie is fantastic. It bombed, people missed it. It is really good. It's a really dark comedy, and you had really good actors in it. Danny DeVito was in it, and also Ed Norton, and Robin Williams, of course, is fantastic. But you had really good actors who could pull off the kind of comedic timing you need to do. And I agree. I like the idea of a satire. The question is going to be is, do you make the jokes about somebody trying to get people out of Pompeii because they know what's about to happen, you know? So you've got to have some kind of setup, there where
Yeah.
there's jokes and comedy around that. But I think that could have that could have been a much better avenue for this movie.
So let me at the risk of maybe not let me speculate. This of all the reviews that we've done together, this is I mean, my sense is this is the movie that has irritated you. This is a bad movie that irritated you more than any of the other ones we've reviewed.
You
Would that be correct to say? I mean,
No, but you're going to be surprised at the ranking that I give this movie, and I will explain why.
okay.
Okay.
I
Um, but
I tend to pan for gold in mounds of manure. I did find some. I didn't. The film is not worth watching again. There's a lot to dislike in this film. Um, I again, more and more that this movie was simply just cannibalized a bunch of other films. For example, they love the I could tell this movie loved the aesthetic of Gladiator. And so you see a lot, I mean, the Praetorian or the Roman guards are pretty much they raided the costume closet of Gladiator to give this black armor that I'm not sure actually existed at all in Rome. And
look,
they love
but
their
we're not
layered
watching this
shoulder
movie.
pads.
We're not watching this movie for historical accuracy. If you
No,
actually,
this movie definitely had a stylized love of Roman aesthetics that was very highly stylized in Gladiator. For example, there's no reason for Kiefer Sutherland, who plays a senator, to be wearing a chest plate, like an armored breastplate at these gladiatorial shows. He should have just been in your tunic and toga. But because it looks a certain way and they want the audience to expect and see a certain thing, like to say this is Rome, this is a Roman guy, they
well, I
just
thought that
have,
fit with his violent nature.
yeah, let's just have
Yeah.
this guy wear armor everywhere, even though I mean the modern equivalent would be you know it's at a dinner party and some guy shows up in like I don't know in yeah, in like Kevlar and
Right.
all his like guns and and his and stuff. And that's kind of what this was. Is why is this guy just walking around even though he's doing sort of just a he's at a banquet? Why is
Right.
he walking around in military gear? Julius Caesar didn't do that. Nor did nor did a Roman general go into a banquet just wore the usual stuff, right? He
Well,
didn't wear armor
yeah.
because it's the audience, it's shorthand to tell the audience that, this is a different time, this is ancient, and this is a bad Roman. Remember, this guy, was a conqueror that slaughtered his family, so we're just going to put him in a. That's the kind of stuff that I watch, and it irritates me. It's all those little things that go against my somewhat desire for some accuracy, and then when you don't have a story that allows you to sort of forgive that, then you start to get irritated. And that was me during much of this film. It
Yeah.
wasn't enough for me not to get irritated. There was no great story or acting that traded off for that.
And the biggest scene of this movie was there is no way that Kiefer Sutherland, Jack Bauer, would not have survived the volcano exploding. I've seen him survive too many things in 24. I'm
That would have been
sorry.
great. Could you imagine if
Special Agent
there was
Jack
like
Bauer
a
would have
clock?
gotten out of there somehow. It's just impossible to believe that he dies in that. And I'm going to put an E on this. He died like a bitch too. He died whining and crying like a bitch. And that's not how Jack Bauer would have gone out. And I
No,
know you're
again,
saying
miscast. He was miscast.
I agree. you're probably saying, Ben, he was not actually playing Jack Bauer in this movie. I don't care. I do not care. You do not send Special Agent Jack Bauer out like a bitch. You just don't do it.
He yeah, he should have played the other gladiator and then maybe had him sort of like somehow survive and then see the clock run to like 0-0 or something.
Yeah.
Um
I don't. Oh, that's it. They could have done a whole comedy about 24 with the countdown. That would have been great with the countdown clock.
I you know I think yeah, I think if we'd reworked this movie, I would have taken out the whole gladiator element. I don't I'm not with you on turning it into a comedy. I definitely would have made it a sort of a drama. Just talk, that you could have put in sort of Roman, I thought the Roman society. What I did find interesting was, and I think they did it by accident. I don't know if they actually did it on purpose, was we tend to think that everyone in Italy was Roman. And there was one little aspect of this movie that I found slightly intriguing was they bring up this idea that, these Pompeians were angry at Rome. And I actually thought that, again, even if it was by accident, we tend to think that yeah, I mean, Pompeians and Capuans and all these people in Italy were Roman. They weren't. There were all sorts of different peoples that were Italian, but were parts of their own parts of Italy that often did have resentment against, the city itself of Romans, and that the Romans themselves were often very snobbish towards other parts of Italy that were not Roman. I found that a minor little intriguing thing that obviously the movie doesn't really explore that much because it would be, I think, very incomprehensible to most modern audiences who just tend to think of anything near Rome or even in Italy was Roman. But in reality, that was not the case. And I found that a minor little intriguing thing. Um, but again, I would have reworked this movie as a drama and to work up to again, I did like the punchline of the movie, the fact that these two lovers, right, are covered in ash and sort of it's revealed to be their story. Imagine a much more romantic and well thought out love story in that milieu of
Yeah,
that sort of Pompeian society.
all the plot points felt like they were tacked on,
Yes,
and that
just
was
check boxes to
yeah.
get to
It's like
or
when
go the
you're
other way and just focus on the entire thing, make it a big disaster movie that's uh like some Roman philosopher like Pliny that is investigating and has become sort of a Cassandra about the rumblings and these earthquakes and what he senses might happen, right? And no
so it
one's
could have been
listening.
like Dante's Peak.
There you go. Could have had Pierce Brosnan in it.
So so one thing though that you could do to make this good again, since you're going to teach again next year, is my son's class didn't get to do the battle. You could instead have them and people who are listening, Victor's class would do this battle from antiquity, these ancient battles. They'd recreate it every year. Okay. My son's class missed out on this. He's still mad about it. You could make them remake this into a better short film. Okay. And you could do the 24 type thing with the clock to start it, right? And then you could work that in like that, and you could still incorporate the Jack Bauer elements. Now, the kids probably wouldn't get that because that's past their time. But my point is, you could assign that to my son's class and make them do that as their modern battle project that they didn't get to do.
You know, it would be fun. I had so much fun with my film class last year. It would be fun as one of the projects if I did a film class again. Let's write a little script and let's see if we can film like a short movie. Um, yeah, and when I do a battle thing again, I would love to incorporate all sorts of things. I'd love to get some of our students with drones. Man, it'd be great to get some aerial footage of this stuff, these battles, and incorporate that because we would make a YouTube film, right, back in the day. It'd be fun. Um,
Oh, yeah, you could have a lot of fun with this, and I think it would work out well. So all right,
all
I
right,
think I think we need to get to the grading, the ranking part of of this podcast episode before we talk about the next movies, because I have a couple of ideas. Okay.
all right. Remind me
And
of the rating. Let's go through it again real quick.
all right, so the rankings are all around excellent movie, Alexander the Great. I don't think we've had one of those yet.
Oh,
Surprisingly good, Claudius. Good but not great, Pyrrhus. Average, not good but not terrible, maybe a little forgettable, Probus.
uh-huh.
And awful is Ephialtes. Those are the rankings that you have. And I'm
And
going to
for
let
our
you go.
listening audience, Ephialtes was the man who betrayed the Spartans to the Persians, right? So his name
Right.
lives forever in infamy. All right. So those are
I'm
our rankings. So what would you rate it?
I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. Ah, it's treading. I guess I'm gonna rate it I'm gonna rate it second from the bottom, a Provis.
Okay.
It's not the worst. I've seen worser. Uh, I've seen worser, but it is definitely skirting the line in terms of a film that uh, annoyed me for many reasons. But I think it was saved by a couple things. Some of that good CGI, the well done volcano explosion being accurate in that sense. And I really did enjoy, again, the last 2 minutes surprised me and I enjoyed that part, that aspect. So that's why I give it the Probus. What about you?
All right. So the acting is underutilized. The plot is terrible. The first like 40 minutes of the film or more are just stupid. The love story is completely unnecessary. The the way Atticus went out was kind of cool, but also you were like, I don't understand why you threw in those who are about to die salute you and a gladiator. He had this whole I die a free man thing, which again, if you developed the story a little bit more, would have been better. Like
Right.
I saw where they were going with that. I just felt like you didn't spend enough time getting there. So what I'm saying here is in the Bula base of this movie, it should come out as an Ephialtes. There is literally nothing good that I have really said about this movie that would justify a good ranking. However, I'm
Okay.
going to surprisingly give this movie a Pyrrhus. And the reason I'm going to give it a Pyrrhus is because the volcano exploding part was just awesome. Every time the volcano rumbled, when the first guy dies at the beginning on the horse, when it just starts shooting lava everywhere, and then the city floods and people are trying to run away and survive, and it takes out the boat. Um, that was really cool. The way that they killed some of the individuals was cool. And if you just like dumb action, you'll enjoy that. And the other part of it is just skip through all the other stuff. Like literally, I was not paying attention to this movie. I wanted to throw my remote at the TV. It was that bad
Yeah.
until the volcano starts exploding. And then it gets pretty awesome because what had preceded it was so bad. So, in all honesty, this movie should get an Ephialtes. However, the volcano exploding elevated it to a point that I was surprised when I watched it. And so I have to go with Epirus because of the volcano explosion part.
Okay. Um, Yeah, I mean, it was well done. The volcano stuff, all that stuff was well done. And the stuff I read was they did their research and they tried to incorporate all of the like, the earthquakes and the rumblings and all those things. Uh, I'd forgotten, you're right. I'd forgotten there's that wonderfully just schlocky scene where the water is just filling up parts of the city, right? And reminded me of Deep Impact, right? That asteroid movie. Um,
A terrible movie.
Terrible movie that is redeemed by the last 5 minutes of total destruction, right? So so
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a
it
lot.
was
Look, if you don't watch this movie, you're not missing out. I mean,
you
I'm
are
with you.
not I can't, that's the thing is I can't recommend this movie. If someone says, should you watch it? I didn't find enough nuggets of gold in it to justify the time spent panning for it,
Yeah,
right?
I would just skip to where the volcano is exploding, and you don't really need to watch anything before that. So if you
Well,
just
it's
watch
on,
that, you'll enjoy
folks, it's on YouTube for free. So yeah, it's about, I don't know, minute 107, 107. So if you want to just fast forward to that and then just get a summary on YouTube of the previous film and just figure out roughly who's who, then you can just watch the rest of the movie and enjoy, enjoy all the CGI programmers' work and set design and watch it all get destroyed.
Yeah, and I think we are technically international, so if you can't access it on YouTube, Daily Motion has it. That's where I found it. So watch it or not, whatever. But next movie ideas. We have talked about HBO's Rome.
Yeah.
With the Christmas holidays coming up, we could probably start watching that to work that in at some point and figure out how to do it. That's going to take some planning.
Okay.
I had a couple of thoughts of us reviewing the Gladiator movies.
Sure.
I feel like we need to do that at some point. But are there any movies or TV shows that you that come to mind that we might do in the future?
No, I would love, I mean, I have tons, but we have time. I would love to actually review. We could either do them both or one at a time. I would love to. I kind of have an iconoclastic view of the Russell Crowe movie. Uh, so I would love to put my thoughts down on that and get your thoughts on it. I would love to do the next film, just review obviously a well-known film and one that I imagine anyone who listens to this podcast has seen. With a film like this, Pompeii, maybe some have seen it. I suspect not many.
Based on the box office sales, I'd say no.
Gladiator is one film where I don't know, I might have things to say about it that, you know, uh, people who listen to this podcast would disagree vehemently about it. So I would love to annoy people in that way. Gladiator 2, man, Gladiator 2, I have to. I I went and saw Gladiator 2 with a buddy, and it was Mystery Science Theater 3000 for us. We had a blast watching what I thought was just a ridiculous film. It's worth rewatching just to the one-liners that was coming from my
So,
friend and myself as we watched it.
yeah, and I like the idea. I think we review them separately because they're both pretty lengthy. I will say I pulled this up while you were talking about Gladiator. Gladiator 2 spent, I don't understand this. I'll have to look at this a little more, but they spent about another 100 or so million dollars to net 3.8 million fewer dollars. So Gladiator 2 did not do particularly well. So, but there's going to be a third one too, I think.
Really, that I mean, we are descending into Jaws 3D territory right there, man. I
That's frightening.
Yeah, Gladiator 3. Okay. Well, anyway, so let's save all our best lines for our review of Gladiator 2. Again, Gladiator 1, uh, I always annoy anyone who asks me my opinion of that movie. By now it's amongst my group of friends that we talk about. They all kind of roll their eyes, nod their head, because they know again I have a very contrarian view of that film. So
And this is interesting. I don't know when they're gonna do the third one, but as I was looking up information about it on Wikipedia, Ridley Scott apparently said his next couple of projects include a Bee Gees biopic
okay,
and an adaptation of the science fiction novel The Dog Stars, which I read that book a while
I read
ago.
that book. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But as of August of 2025, apparently Gladiator 3 is in progress, which,
Oh
okay.
gosh, I know this is a digressive topic right now, but Ridley Scott is a filmmaker that my goodness, ah, it just seems like Alien and Blade Runner are flukes. That guy just I don't think that I think the man has lost. I've seen too many terrible films from that guy
Yeah.
to now think of him. I honestly now when I hear Ridley Scott is directing, I have veered into the zone of, oh gosh, it'll probably stink,
Yeah, I don't think that
which is shocking, right?
you're wrong about that. I mean, he did, and I'd have to go back and watch this because I grew up with it being kind of on TV. Thelma and Louise, um,
Good movie. Kingdom of Heaven
Black
is
Hawk Down, I remember being
Black
good.
Hawk Down is a good film.
Matchstick Men, I don't remember well enough to say. American Gangster was, I think, okay.
It was overrated, but it was okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was terrible. The Martian was good, but there's a lot of money, a lot of movies in here that are not that great. I liked the Napoleon movie,
I did not.
but
I'll tell you the film that stunned me in how terrible it was and how mindless and unaware of its mindlessness was. I remember years ago the Alien, was it either Alien Prometheus or something, right?
well, there was Prometheus and then there was Alien Covenant.
Well, I
Prometheus
didn't even
had
see
its
Covenant, but
Yeah,
because
Prometheus had
Prometheus,
its moments, but Alien Covenant was really bad.
I mean, Prometheus to me, I was stunned at how bad it was. And that's probably what finally got me over the edge in terms of thinking, wait, Ridley Scott is perfectly fine making schlock, uh, and doesn't understand what made his other films good.
Well,
Um,
yeah, Alien Covenant was really, really bad. And I do think you get to a point where this comes back to my idea that nostalgia is a mental illness and problematic. I don't think he needed to make Prometheus, and he certainly didn't need to make Alien Covenant. Those movies added nothing to what he had done with Alien in the first place.
Agreed.
I mean,
Uh,
Alien was, to borrow from TV, it was a bottle episode, basically. It all takes place in one constrained spot, right?
yeah.
And these other movies, anyway, but we could go on for a while about that. So, all right, so we're gonna slot Gladiator and Gladiator 2 while we try to map out how to do HBO's Rome and come up with a comedic story for remaking Pompeii.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. If you want to find us online, go to the socials at Antiquity Pod for most of them. You can go to our website, classicalantiquitypod.com. You can call the podcast 540-632-0160. Ask a question, leave a comment. You will get on the air. If you have a question, either I will answer it or perhaps one of our guests will answer it. But again, call. We'd appreciate it. The theme music is by Brent Earhart, and stay tuned, folks. There are more episodes coming. I have to keep doing this because, as you know, the Classical Antiquity Sidequest is a podcast without end.